Desde 2019, a Toyota vem acelerando o futuro, produzindo no Brasil o primeiro híbrido flex do mundo. De lá pra cá, as coisas mudaram. Muitos entraram na tendência que a gente criou. Mas sabe o que não mudou? A confiança do brasileiro na Toyota, que não veio da noite pro dia. Toyota, no futuro há muito tempo. Paz no Trânsito começa por você.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're wrapping up our series on the biggest issues in the fall election. But in this episode, we're actually focusing on the thing that's behind all of the campaign slogans and policy proposals. We're going to be talking about the vibes of this election. And what we mean by that is, how does Portland feel right now? How are these candidates embodying their idea of what Portland's all about? And how can we expect them to carry themselves in office? Our host, Claudia Meza, is talking with Willamette Week reporter and author Brianna Wheeler. They'll look at the energy that candidates are bringing to this race, from business as usual, established politicians, to the weird, wild, and youthful, and how we can expect to see that energy showing up in the policies that they propose. It's Thursday, September 12th. I'm executive producer John Notarianni, and this is what Portland's talking about.
Brianna, we have deemed you to be the number one vibes expert of all of our regular guests. So congratulations.
Thank you. That does track. I smoke a lot of pot.
Okay. So our listeners understand that we will be speaking about policy. Why do you think vibes are important in politics? Like, what can we learn from them?
Well, when we're using the word vibes, first of all, let's just define it, because we're not really using it as this kind of like millennial stoner catch-all term. What we're referring to is like the energy that a person brings into a room, the energy that a person brings to a conversation, to a round table. And it's important because there are so many people about to be seated at this table. And so we're looking at platform, we're looking at their histories and their pedigree, but we also should be looking at how well their energy interacts with the energy of others. Can they harmonize? Are their vibrations malleable, or are they firm and stiff? That's why the vibes are important.
For other people who are like, I still don't get it. Imagine you're planning a really killer dinner party and you're just like, I can't seat that friend with that friend because it's going to be a thing. You know, it's like that, right?
It is very that. So we are essentially planning our big dinner party, and we have to choose who's going to sit at this table, who's going to have arguments that are going to be able to resolve them, and who's going to have arguments and they're just going to sit in there and just be angry.
Yeah, we don't want that.
You know, who's bringing what energy to the party, and how is that energy going to interact with everybody else's energy? Will it work? Will it not?
Well, how would you characterize the vibe of our city today?
That's a good question. I want to categorize the Portland vibe as kind of like eternally hopeful. Forever optimistic, progressive. But that's me just kind of being very hopeful because that's my vibe. I think the truth is that the vibe is quite beleaguered. The vibe is very tired.
It's like single mom right after work walks in, the kids are screaming, they still have to make dinner. I feel like that's Portland vibe right now.
That is very much Portland vibe.
Like we're just like,
I just want to take my bra off.
But we can't take the bra off because there's so much more work still to do.
Exactly. That's
Portland vibe right now.
Beautiful way to put it.
All right. What are the two main vibe categories that you're seeing? I hate being like this reductive. We're just like, sorry, we're a 2 vibe category system.
No vibe binary.
I just know if we don't give ourselves restrictions, Brianna, it's going to be you and me talking about why narwhals exist. And I'm like, you can't get there. We need to continue this coherent path.
Yes.
Okay, so like tell us how you're categorizing us today.
Since we have to do this, kind of like break it down into 2, just kind of, they're so general. And there's so much room for more vibes in these 2 general categories. But we've got kind of establishment vibes. These are people that have worked in politics. You know, their CV has City Hall. They're on this board. They're on that board. But anyway, they get how government works. They are experienced in this realm. That's one vibe. The other vibe that we're talking about is more of, I'm hesitant to say newcomer because a lot of the people that we've relegated to this side of the vibe category are not necessarily newcomers, but the energy that they're bringing to the conversation is new. It does not necessarily align with the establishment. They're bringing maybe newer ideas, newer approaches.
And you're not just talking about their vibes, you're talking about their policies. So this person with this new youthful vibe could be a 55-year-old man who's worked in politics for 50 years. It's just their ideas are fresher and newer than what we've been, used to hearing, is what you're saying. I just want to lay that out. Okay.
Precisely.
So let's start with the city council races. We'll do District 1, which is East Portland, like outer East Portland. It's a district that a lot of us are very excited about having representation. So let's go to the new ideas, energy vibes. Who are you seeing in that category?
So someone that kind of pops out in my purview there is Jamie Dunphy, Oregon Government Relations Director for the American Cancer Society, Senior Policy Director for Commissioner Nick Fish. But he's on the board of Music Portland. Now, why he sticks out, first of all, if you go to his website, scroll down a little bit, and this dude has like a Spotify playlist on the front page of his website. That's a vibe. Like he's letting you know right there. This is where I'm coming from. Literal vibrations. So the vibe here is this bolstering of small business, music business, putting Portland back on the map as a music destination, which is very timely as Live Nation wants to come in and wreck up the place.
We actually had him on to talk about that.
I like him for mostly that specific voice is one that is critical to the city because live music, whether you're into it or not, it is part of the fabric of the city. It's what makes the city compelling. It's what makes the city visitable. It's one of the things. So prioritizing that, it's not going to be on everybody's radar to prioritize that. So it's dope that it's on his radar to prioritize that. And so I'm loving those vibes.
All right. So what's another candidate that you wanted to talk about?
I'm really excited about Dean Salazar. He was a member of the Oregon Commission on Autism. He's very young, early 20s. But his whole motive behind running is access for disabled Oregonians. And again, this just like the energy that Jamie Dunphy is bringing is like, somebody needs to stand up for small music venues because small music venues are a part of Portland. Dean is standing up and saying, somebody needs to stand up for children and adults with special needs because they are also a part of the fabric of Portland. And this is especially relevant because Portland public school teachers went on strike. One of the reasons was because their special needs classrooms were so deprived of support. And so having that voice at the table, I think is going to be super, super crucial. And also, I don't know if any of you have friends that are on the spectrum or autistic, like you already know that's a vibe. That's a fun vibe to have around. It's interesting. It's a point of view that a lot of people will never consider because they don't have those people in their lives. That those point of views.
Yeah, there's a hint of chaos. I do. I just want to put it out there. It's just because like dogged honesty can sometimes be chaotic. That is all.
That's true. And I'm wondering how that energy would stand up to the similarly chaotic vibes of an establishment politician who's kind of stands firm in their do's and their don'ts. Because one thing that I've noticed about the autistic people in my circle is that they do not have time for your bullshit. That's part of the bluntness. Cutting right through and seeing to the very heart of a matter and breaking it out in a way that somebody who's coming from a place of emotion won't be able to kind of unpack in the same way. Does that make sense?
Totally. Agreed.
He seems like a cool kid.
Well, let's talk about establishment. Has all this experience, may not be particularly fresh, but who are you looking at?
Well, the most familiar name in District 1 has got to be Loretta Smith. Does she ever not run for office? She is always. This is her job. This is what she does. She does represent the Black population of the neighborhood that is her neighborhood. And she knows Portland. She's worked for Portland. She's been around. She's been in this game long enough to know how several different ways in which it can be played. Loretta's vibe is very, we know her face, we know her voice, we know her platforms.
She was the former Multnomah County Commissioner from 2011 to 2018. She was on staff for 20 years under Ron Wyden. She ran for city council in 2018 and 2020 and did not get the seat.
And she lost to Dan Ryan.
Yeah, and she also ran for U.S. House in Oregon's 6th District in 2022. She's known right now for just losing races, which is interesting. But no, I'm like not trying to be, joking. I'm just like, that's what people might know her, is that they were like, didn't vote for her,
Yeah.
If we're going to talk about the Black vote in District 1, if you brought up Loretta as like she's a Black politician running for this very underrepresented district. I mean, there's Terrence Hayes as well. He's the uncle of Quantas Hayes, who was killed by Portland police in 2017. He spent 12 years in prison for his involvement in a gang-related shooting. He got out in 2016, and since then, he's been a vocal proponent of criminal justice reform and restorative justice specifically. And he owns this like restore nuisance abatement, which is like services for pressure washing, graffiti removal, that kind of thing. And this will be his first time running for political office. I just wanted to say, hey, here's a Black man who has a very unique background, perspective on almost anything that is going to be touching his community. And he's running for District 1. I don't know what vibe particularly I would probably say the first vibe, like new ideas may not be like, might feel established to some people, because I think some people are looking at him with one eye since he seems to be very happy to be working with police. And I think that for some reason that's causing some friction within his own community. But I think that is fresh and new.
You know what? You're right. But also, I want to point out that his like coolest cousin at the barbecue vibes are also very strong. And that's an enjoyable vibe to have. That is a vibe that sits well around a table with other people. That is a vibe that exchanges ideas. That is a vibe that can be changed, can be molded, can reinterpret itself. That is a good vibe.
He's like the guy who's going to show you how to like make the perfect bite in a fork when you're a little kid.
Oh my God.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
That is so specific. I love it. But yes, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about District 2. That's actually the district that I live in, which is North and Northeast Portland, a big chunk of Northeast Portland. Let's talk about new ideas. Who's bringing that energy?
Okay. So I love Nat West. I think Portland in general kind of loves Nat West.
Cider guy.
The cider guy. Yeah. And they love him as Reverend Nat. He's actually one of the few politicians that we're talking about today that I have actually shaken hands with, that I've met this man. I have felt the vibe in person. The vibe was good.
He was also a bus driver for shortly. I don't think he is anymore. And to me, that's just like, wow. And I think he also you learn so much about the city as a bus driver.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like some good research there.
Supporting your community. It's a little bit of organization there. You have to stand up for the little guy a lot of times on the bus when shit goes down. It was a fellow bus rider I know that should be going down on the bus sometimes. It's wild, but I love that for him. Yes, he is bringing that same kind of, like a similar energy to Jamie Dunphy, that kind of like, we are going to champion small business. And I am championing small business from the position of a small business owner that owns a small business that has become so a part of Portland. Like, Portland went crazy for cider when Reverend Nats dropped. Nobody was really fucking with cider, 6 or 7 years ago. And then Reverend Nat comes on the scene, and now everybody's like, gluten-free, we're never drinking beer again. And it was just cider everywhere. I really look at Reverend Nat Cider as the trendsetter there.
He can sell something, is what you're saying. He could sell his ideas, is what I'm hearing.
Can. Yes.
Well, what about David Burnell? He's a substance abuse counselor. He co-chaired Oregon's 988 Suicide Hotline Initiative, and he also worked on policy for Oregon Health Authority's Adult Suicide Intervention and Prevention Plan. So he has that behavioral health foundation, which is something we're lacking. Yeah, but tell me, what is he bringing that's so fresh?
That is the energy that he's bringing. Most of the candidates running for city council, on their platforms, they are going to address homelessness, houselessness, and drug abuse. And most of them don't have the same background. Most of them are not out here in the streets working with the people that they are claiming to want to uplift and David Burnell is. He's out there. He's in these streets. And who has sat at the city council table that has that same pedigree? Right? If we're all saying that this is an issue, we want to create solutions for this specific issue. But nobody has the experience, the literal face-to-face, hands-on experience of dealing with that issue on the day-to-day. That's their livelihood. That's their life. It's so important to have that POV at the table.
Right.
So I do like David Bernal. That's a great vibe.
Yeah. Another person that you're bringing up in the new energy vibes, who also has, I think, substantial credentials working in our government, is Nabil Zaghloul. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. Apologies, Nabil, if I'm not. Nabil Zaghloul worked at Multnomah County for nearly 30 years, has leadership roles in the juvenile justice system, Department of Community Justice, and Health Department divisions. He currently leads a program in the Department of County Human Services to provide direct case management in the Cully neighborhood, which is where he lives and he's running for. First time running for office. What's catching your eye? I mean, aside from all the things I said, like what's catching your eye with Nabil?
Okay. This is going to sound so superficial, but just stay with me here.
I will.
I got the flyer in my mail for Nabil, and it had a lovely picture of him. And he's got a newsboy cap on, and he's got a sweater vest and a tie and a sport coat. And he was giving such strong Edward James Olmos vibes from, is it Stand and Deliver?
Where he does math with underprivileged children?
Yes.
Oh
it was
my
that
God.
Vibe.
I'm sorry. I was just sent this picture. That is 100% that vibe. Brianna isn't
Right?
pulling stuff out of nowhere. That is a Stand and Deliver outfit right there. Yeah, he's going to teach us how to do math real good.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's what this city needs. We need to pass calculus.
We can't even say it now? We're that dumb? We can't even pronounce calculus, Brianna? We're like, what is this calculus?
Calculus.
And Nabil's like,
me, Nabil.
calculus. My sweet idiots. Okay. I'm like, sorry, man, I only know the streets. Okay, so that's so dumb. Anyhow, no, his background seems to really fill out that outfit. Let's just put it that way, because that
I'm saying.
It's no. Outfit alone for sure, Brianna. Let's talk about the more established, vibes here.
Oh, sure.
Let's talk about it, because I know of a very established candidate that's running who is actually a commissioner right now, but that's not who you want to talk about. Who are you looking at?
Dan Ryan has taken enough air out of my lungs, I think, for the time being. He gets talked about a lot. Anyway, let's talk about Michelle DePass. Now, this woman, 2-term member of Portland Public School Board, and representing a historically Black neighborhood. Just outstanding best auntie in the family vibes.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The advice auntie.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about, Michelle DePass. She has been a long-time activist and community worker with the North Portland neighborhood, and that's where she's from. She's from Albina. That's her community.
Yeah. And she's like a little bit older. I'm not age shaming. And again, if we're having voices from all these different types of experience, all of these different energies at the table, that is one that needs to be represented as well. And as far as like all of the kind of the older candidates go, she's definitely one of my favorites because the energy is just immaculate.
Yeah, I think that's a very important voice to have, especially since we're having so much discordance with our public school system. Mm. Well, let's move on to District 3, which is Central East Side. Who's bringing in the new fresh ideas in that district?
You already know it's got to be Angelita.
Angelita Morillo.
You say it so much more beautifully. Love it.
It's Spanish.
Beautiful accent. Yeah. Gen Z diva. Also super young. Was she like 23, 24, 25?
She's in her she's a 20-year-old. But she has so much experience, though. It's not just like, here's this young person. Like, she's a policy advocate for Partners for a Hunger-Free Oregon. She serves on the city's Rental Service Commission, and she previously worked for former Commissioner Jo Ann Hardesty.
Which is honestly like, whew.
So tell me about her. Like, what are some of the fresh ideas that she's bringing?
What I like about Angelita is that you look at other candidates and they're telling you, these are things that I think are problems, and I'm going to handle them. These are things that I would like to address. Mm-hmm. That's fine. That's par for the course. What Angelita does is she says, here are our problems. These are ideas that I'm laying out about how to fix it. I've got actual solutions. Here are solutions I have worked on in my brain and I'm giving to you now. There's no vague, like, yeah, I'm going to work with ... It's very logical, unpacked, all there for you on our website. And I love that. It's so straightforward. And I think it's part of this kind of like TikTok-y generation thing where I have to get my idea to you. It has to be clear. It has to be concise. You have to understand what I'm saying. And it has to be in what? Less than a minute. Explain it to me like I'm a baby in less than a minute so that I can understand you. Calculus.
Yeah, calculus. How do calculus? Not only that, I just want to bring back the image of we are about to unhook that bra. We're just like, come on, guys, one of you, let's move forward. Okay, so that's Angelita Morillo.
Oh wait, one more thing about Angelita. Part of her campaigning was an Instagram ad that went out a couple of weeks ago, and it was just invitations to her birthday party. I thought that shit was the best thing ever.
Like, so cute. And for people who are just like, who's this Angelita Morillo? It's Angelita Morillo if you're not a Spanish speaker and you're seeing that name.
Truly, if you're a West Coaster and that's how you're pronouncing it, I'm ashamed of you.
Disappointed.
Yes.
So there's also Daniel DeMello, who's the chair of the Joint Office of Homeless Services Community Budget Advisory Committee and chair of the Multnomah County Central Community Budget Advisory Committee. They're groups of community members that review and make recommendations on just the county departmental budgets and operations. To me, that's like snore. And you're saying, no, he's in the new, fresh vibe idea. Yeah. So how is Daniel DeMello bringing in this vibe when I couldn't even get through his bio without falling asleep a little?
I know. This is another, like, stay with me for this one.
Okay.
So the impression that I get is that he's a young conservative. You know, he's conservative minded. Okay. But the energy is like young conservative just arrived at liberal arts college. You know what I mean? He is about to get rocked. Right? But like he chose this college. So he had to know that he was going to get rocked, right? So he's standing on these maybe a little bit more conservative leaning principles. He's endorsed by Renee Gonzalez. I think the police unions are endorsing him too. The general energy is one of conservatism. But it's also like, bro, you're in Portland. Like, how conservative can you? Obviously you can be, but to step into this arena and to want to work with the other type of people that are running for these seats, there has to be a certain softness there. And because of his age, I think there's also a lot of opportunity for learning. And also, this is kind of like everybody gets a seat at the table. Yeah. And there are young conservative people out there. And Daniel, if you're not like heckin' conservative, I'm sorry to put this on you. It's just the vibe that I'm getting.
I will say he is, as you stated, he is endorsed by the Portland Police Association, as well as the Firefighters Local 43 and the LGBTQ plus Victory Fund.
Wow. Takes all kinds.
All right. Now let's go to District 4. That's the west side, meaning northwest, southwest, and a chunk of southeast, which is Selwood. In the New Ideas vibes, you mentioned two people. Mitch Green, who has a PhD in economics from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, and currently works as an economist at the Bonneville Power Administration. We've discussed him a few times in almost, I think, all of our issues, which is crazy. He's also served as a part-time instructor at the Portland State University and most recently, Portland Community College. You also mentioned Stanley Penkin, who's a retired background in civil engineering and nonprofit work, formerly served as the chair of the Pearl District Neighborhood Association and the nonprofit Home Share Oregon, and he co-founded the Oregon Arts and Culture PAC. So he's kind of an art nerd. So tell me about these two. Yeah. Like, what is it that are, because they both seem like they're deep in the things that they're doing. Yeah. What are their fresh ideas? What are you seeing?
Well, for Mitch Green, I just kind of love this. Like, his website, it looks like an ad for Miller beer. Like, the vibe is so strongly, I am a blue collar worker. I mean, he's not. He's an instructor at a university. But the vibe that he's bringing is I'm representing blue collar workers and you want to have a beer with me.
Dude, it's because he's using the font for Miller Lite.
Yeah.
Yeah, when Woody wrote, what I remember most about growing up in Portland is that this is a city of fighters, folks who pour their blood, sweat, and tears into building the city they deserve. Miller Lite. I totally, right?
My God. Give him a job at Miller today.
All
I'm
right.
sure that he would do great.
Okay, so Mitch Green, you're just saying, just vibes alone. What about Stanley Penkin?
Okay, so this person, their vibe is such a freaking mystery to me. So I wasn't really sure where to put them. Not necessarily establishment, certainly not new ideas, but when you imagine the Pearl District vibe, who lives in the Pearl District? Who's out there hard repping for the Pearl District? This is the person that I imagine. So an arts patron just wants to celebrate the artist, wants to live in a place that's beautiful. And, that is also a very important piece of the Portland puzzle is our public art scene, our art schools, the way that we foster artists. But also, he's just like throwing money at all the politicians, regardless of who or what they stand for, it seems like. It's a little bit like space cadet billionaire vibes. Again, I don't know this man, so I can't speak to like what he's like behind closed doors.
Is he a billionaire? Or he has a lot of money?
Those are the vibes.
Okay. So he just
the vibes
exudes
are like
that. Yeah.
Rich vibes. If I'm the maestro of this vibrational orchestra and we want to make sure that every single frequency is represented at the table, then you kind of have to have like a weird, rich weirdo because we have to represent the Pearl District, right? But also, you got to have a champion for the arts up in here.
It's true.
Of course, we have our issues. And we absolutely, those should be on the front of everybody's minds. That should be the largest portion of the plate. But we can't, if someone's not focused on art and culture, then what the fuck is it all for?
All right. Establishment vibes for District 4. Three people you brought up. Olivia Clark, who previously worked as legislative director for Governor John Kitzhaber, who also worked for TriMet to help develop funds for light rail lines. Eric Zimmerman, current chief of staff to Julia Brim Edwards. And Bob Weinstein, retired and previously served 12 years as mayor of Ketchikan, Alaska, which I just visited, by the way, last week.
Oh, cool. Last week?
Yeah, I was in Alaska. I know.
Awesome. That's cool.
And I'm just saying, if he has anything to do with that, it was a lovely town. Anyhow, so let's talk about Olivia Clark, Eric Zimmerman, and Bob Weinstein. Tell me what is going on there. Like, what are the vibes here?
Okay, this is easy. We can break this one out. So they're all establishment. They all have the experience. They all get government. Olivia Clark, she got soft mom vibes.
Okay. Let me
right? You want to take your kid to a play date at her kid's house. They'll be safe. There'll be cookies. They'll be gluten-free and sugar-free.
Okay.
Love that.
Yeah.
Right? Eric Zimmerman, on the flip side, no offense to my circuit party friends out there, but this dude has big circuit party vibes. Like white party vibes, a little bit. If you know, you know. Bob Weinstein, this guy's vibe is very much like the grandpa stepping up to clean up your mess kind of vibes. Like the elder statesman, like, yeah, I got this. That kind of, I don't want to call him a curmudgeon, but I mean, he was a mayor for like 12 years. I think that's a little bit baked in. You work in government, you work in a high level position that long, it changes you. It changes your DNA. So kind of a little bit more of a power grandpa vibe. So we got soft mom vibes, circuit party vibes, and power grandpa vibes for those three.
What I'm hearing is he's been a mayor for so long that bra has basically like just embedded in his body, and he knows he can never take it off. And he's just like, I will carry this burden for everyone. That's what I'm hearing.
My goodness.
Right?
The sacrifice.
I know.
That made my back hurt. That metaphor made my sternum ache.
Well, that was District 4. That was all the districts. I'm now curious about let's talk about the mayors.
Mayorals.
I know a lot of people are seeing this as a two-person race. I'm not. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we are either. Yeah, but I understand why people are thinking that. It's, polls and money. But let's talk about Liv Ostis. She made a point in making how we think about Portland part of her platform. Like vibes were part of her platform. So was Keith Wilson. When he came on to discuss, when they both came on to discuss, they both made it very clear, like, we need to change the narrative of our city. And that is, we're talking vibes, baby,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about those two. Like, what are you seeing with Leave and Keith?
I love Leave. That energy is so potent. That is not an energy that you see in the halls of government. And that is so attractive. I feel represented by Leave. I feel like I'm the Portland that she's seeking to represent. I feel like I could tell Liv, well, these things are really bothering me about my neighborhood and my city. And she would understand what I was talking about in a way that none of these other candidates do. So
Yeah.
I love that vibe.
So we're putting her under fresh and new is what I'm hearing.
For sure. Yeah. Keith as well. Although I don't have the same, like, he doesn't get me all emotional the way that Liv does.
You know what's so funny is that Keith, for me, is my fresh and new. Like, if I had to put, different, because he's from North Portland. When we interviewed him, I was like, I know who you are. And like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, you would have a beer with me at Slim's and you know where that is. You know, he seemed like a cool dude. Both, again, don't have any experience. Neither Keith nor Leave have any experience day to day managing a city, any of that stuff. But both come from very drastic different backgrounds. Leave is, an artist. She is a stripper. I mean, she's been in the arts community here in Portland for decades. And Keith Wilson runs a very successful transportation company, has an all-electric fleet of big rigs,
dope.
which is crazy. Trucking, yeah, right? He built that company. I think it was like in his family, but he built it to what it is now. And he's from North Portland. He's from St. John's. He's from this area. So just big ups to that alone. This is not especially like 30, 40 years ago, this wasn't a neighborhood that propelled success. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about the other category, which is, hey, here are some established vibes, but you wanted to talk about Carmen Rubio and Renee Gonzalez. So tell me about these two.
Well, these are our establishment candidates. Well, Mingus Maps is...
Oh, and Mingus Maps. He's still there, man. He's still running. No,
he exists.
Yeah, he's still running.
So yeah, these are, honestly, what have any of us taken away from the last 4 years? What have any of us taken away from the last 8 years? What will these candidates bring with them from their terms into this new position? For Carmen, I'm like, yeah, she's going to do great. She'll be awesome. She is perfectly suited for this role. I'm imagining Renee Gonzalez's Portland, and I don't like it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Is that going to put me on a list somewhere? Or somebody going to come for me because I said that?
Did you know in the last 24 hours that we found out that both of them, both Rubio and Gonzalez, have had their licenses suspended multiple times?
Why?
Let's see. Records show Renee Gonzalez frequently ticketed for speeding, often failed to show up in court, and twice had license suspended. So Gonzalez for speeding and Rubio for, and I can totally see this. I can totally see this because I feel like I know people like this, where they rack up like parking tickets or whatever, and they just forget to pay them.
Yeah.
She received 150 parking tickets.
Oh my gosh.
Over the last 2 decades. This isn't like in a week. Yeah.
Well,
20 years.
Come on.
20 years. I do want to say this is a Shane Dixon Kavanaugh joint, which is Oregonian investigator, and he gets in there. You know what I mean? Like, probably the biggest reason I'll never run for any kind of office is Shane Dixon Kavanaugh.
Oh,
she's
be like, coming for that ass.
She got a C+ in Spanish, and I'll be so embarrassed. And I'll be like, don't tell my mom, you know? So Nigel Jaquist was on Gonzalez. He did Gonzalez, and Shane Dixon Kavanaugh was the one who went deep on Carmen Rubio. We don't know about Keith Wilson or Leave. I'm sure they've had tickets in their life. I don't know how this is relevant to anything.
No.
I need someone to explain how this is relevant to being a mayor. I know.
Yeah.
But we have to, like, it is out there. That is a thing. Do you have anything else to say about these two before we wrap it all up on the vibes?
Yes, I do. Remember, when we're voting for mayor, yes, we are voting for mayor, but also there's a city manager that is going to be all up in this piece, doing all types of work. So when you're examining in your mind what you want from your mayor, keep that in mind, that this is very much like this person, more than anything, is just a representative of Portland, like the face of Portland, so to speak.
Well, I hope that our listeners have found this educational. I hope that they are sitting at home with a lot more information on their lap than they were previously. Brianna. Thank you so much for spending your morning with us. Just doing a vibe check. You did bring out a few candidates that I hadn't even considered. So thank you.
Word. Yes. Count on me for the vibe check.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.